Hello, loves. It's Sonia G. It's a super late Moon Babes Monday Night Live, and we're going to talk about this move that Mercury is making. Mercury just entered Pisces today. We're going to talk about, we just had the new moon in Pisces. Mercury is in Pisces. Mercury is making moves. And we're going to talk about the equinox and the energy and everything that's like happening right now. And you guys that are actually awake. What is going on? It's like almost midnight. I think this is the latest that I have ever been live. So let's have this late night live. Have my celery juice. Shout out to Nava that made all of the juice detox. We are like ready for the equinox. Wilson, I stayed up for this. I love you. Oh my gosh. And Joan, I was waiting. I love you guys so hard. Okay. Because you can feel it, right? Like you can feel it that like shit is changing. So the energy of what's happening right now and the things that are important to talk about is the fact that, remember, we just had Mercury retrograde and it was like massive, right? Like at the end of last month. And the month before, I can't even remember when it went retrograde, but we just came out of retro shadow, meaning Mercury has been direct for over 2 weeks. Generally, there's like that 2 weeks period. And during that time, everything kind of reshuffles, okay? Mercury is the messenger of the gods. I know that like everybody has something to say about Mercury retrograde. I'm Virgo. I feel like I understand Mercury because Mercury is the ruler of Virgo, okay? Virgo is an earth sign. Mercury is the messenger. Also, if you're Gemini, you're ruled by Mercury. Mercury is the messenger of the gods, bringing the information from the heavens down to the earth, to ground, right? So what happens when Mercury goes retrograde beyond like any of what the people, say in astrology and things? I was trying to wear this because it's cute, but it's just going to get tangly. So what happens is Mercury does the retro thing, collects all the things that it needs to collect, that it needs us to look at, right? Scoops them all up, reshuffles them. Then we have this like shadow period where it's like everything just kind of, right? And then as it moves direct and starts to make moves, like right now, Mercury in Pisces, that's where we just had the new moon, a big new beginning, which means that today messages get delivered. Whose reality just got massively re-fucking organized today, right? So you have to be willing to work with Mercury. And Mercury is making some other moves, like, throughout this month. The important part is the understanding that it's the things that we have to put the ego aside, right? So Pisces is a sign of intuition, and we have to listen to that. And so this next little step is about recalibrating and actually allowing for the divine reshuffling to happen, okay? This is like, the thing that I wanted to explain to you tonight is this is the thing where people get confused when it comes to manifesting, okay? So when we're manifesting and we want an outcome, okay, and we want something and we're holding it and we're manifesting it, right? So it's like, this is what I want. God, angels, universe, I'm holding the vibe, okay? I'm holding this. And it's always the energy that we have to assume is always this or something better, right? Like this or my divine alignment. Like I'm going to do everything that I know how to do to manifest this, or I'm going to open up for something better, for something that's in higher alignment, for bigger blessings than I even knew. Because so many times we don't look at things from divine eyesight, right? Like we look at things from our earthly eyesights, but divine perspective is sometimes different. That doesn't mean that things don't happen. It means that things get shuffled and things happen sometimes in better ways than you think that they do, right? So allow for the reshuffling, and the reshuffling is not failure, and the reshuffling is not surrendering. The reshuffling and the recalibrating is actually trusting that your higher self, God, angels in the universe know what the fuck they're doing. And you're exercising that faith, right? Instead of saying, I happen to know better than God, or, angels or the universe, like however you think of that. So that's what's going on. So I do want to tell you a story of what happened today to put it in context. But energetically speaking, okay, this is the big kind of bang. Remember how we were saying, like, energetically, it felt like it was the calm before the storm over the weekend. It feels like the airwaves kind of go blank. And it feels like everything is just kind of coming energetically to like a boom, 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 boom. And then it builds back up. Because energy comes in waves. Frequency is in waves, okay? So you learn to write it. We learn to write it, and we want to write it on the top. And this is what I talk about, like when we're in the astral planes, when we do the astral travel and the astral integration, the astral activation work, we're writing it on top, and we're bringing the top of the line, right? The newest frequencies down, and we're integrating those, and then those actually help us to surf. Like if we integrate them and we hold them, then we surf, on top. So this Mercury conversation that's happening now, that's recalibrating everything, pay attention, because things get to be like reshuffled and reorganized, and that's going to take us to the equinox. The equinox energy is already open. The gateways of the equinox opened up with the new moon in Pisces over the weekend. And that is a major recalibration of the grid, new earth grid, and higher access to all of the higher chakras. This equinox is opening up the potential for everybody to integrate up to 36 strands of DNA. So we're jumping from 12 to 36. Okay, like we just got done integrating 12, and all of a sudden it's like, boom, we're all the way up. To be fair, the 24, like from 12 to 24, which I've been calling the mirror dimensions, opened up this last year over the solstice. I really just thought that they were, that was going to be our job. I thought we were going to get a year or something, maybe, like to work through those chakras, but we're going all the way up. Hi, loves. I see you guys joining. So we're going all the way up to 36, right? And that's going to be what our physical body can actually sustain, what our physical body can actually handle, okay? So it's 12, 24, 36, and they shift and they take us to different timelines. Now, every strand of DNA plugs in and it works with our chakra system, okay? Which is the reason why now I think pretty much fucking everybody knows that it's not just 7 chakras. Kind of like everybody knows about 3D and 5D. I feel like even people that don't really understand it kind of know, right? So we have more chakras. They range well outside of the body. Like our energy mostly is aware outside of our body. Like what we're doing here is like a tiny portion of our actual true identity and our true life, which is really wild when you really think about it. And this begins to make sense when we start to connect through, okay, to all of our chakras. So a lot of people are being initiated in their jobs of light. A lot of people are actually receiving visitations. A lot of people are, by visitations, I mean, if you meditate or if you're a dreamer, okay, meaning if you get communication in your dreams, a lot of people, this happens. If you're not comfortable with things happening during your awake time, they will happen in your dreams. But if you're comfortable with them in your awake time, then, you can rest. But kind of, physical body can rest, but our soul and our spirit is always out doing the work, right? So, but you will get, talk to your guides, okay? Talk to your guides, talk to your angels, talk to your higher self, talk to the star beings, okay? And I've said this many times, and there's specific lives where I talk about this. There's a lot of people that talk about channeling, and that's kind of like, oh, I'm channeling this and I'm downloading that. How do you know if you're doing it right? You have to be in your fucking heart. You have to be in your heart. You have to be in your heart. Your heart has to be active. So if you are out of your heart, if you're not in your body, okay, if your body is not active, if your heart chakra is not active, if you're not grounded to heaven and earth, if your vehicle, meaning your physical body, is not active, don't do it, okay? If you're scared, don't do it, because if you're scared, your energy is outside of your body, okay? or if you are on some kind of medicine that's kicking you out of your body, right? Or if you took something that's kicking you out of your body, but you're not staying in love, like absolute love in your heart, then you don't know. Because the only way to know is if you're in your heart. If you're in your heart, then you can actually apply the laws of the universe, because it means that your energy is present inside of your body and you can command both your body and the space around you, which means you can send out the bad guys, right? The bad juju vibes, like the beings with the wrong intentions, and you can clear that, and you can invite in only the beings of the highest truth and light that are serving the divine plan, okay? That's how you know. And they'll start talking to you, and you have to build this relationship, but you have to do it in a place where you feel safe. If you don't feel safe, if you're just like, who the fuck is that? Are you here to talk to me? Like, don't do it, okay? Like, chances are, I mean, unless like the message really has to come through to you because it's like, you know, a message of dire need, and it's like, you know, your family on the other side or something. But when you're scared, and sometimes it's scary because it's like, oh, you know, it's 1 a.m, the world is quiet, and all of a sudden there's this light, you know, like in my room, and the lights flicker, and some weird, you know, technology shit happens, and you're like, who's there? And then like you connect. So initially you can get that feeling like, right? It's normal. But then, you know, as it happens more, you're just like, okay, people, out of my room. Like, I need to go to bed. But the thing that you want to do after the initial, right, is breathe, stop, get in your heart. What happens when people get scared is they jump out of their body. That's the stupidest thing we could possibly fucking do. When you're outside of your body, you're not safe, okay? So when you get scared, go even deeper in your body, okay? So get inside your body, activate your heart. Once your heart is active, you're powerful. If you jump outside of your body and you disconnect your heart, you lost all your juju, okay? So, yes. Archangel Michael, don't mess around when kicking out bad entities. Yes, Bobby has learned, right? So we call in Archangel Michaels. You can call in your angels. You can call in your archangels. Archangel Michael's always the one. Anytime, do you guys remember how Doreen Virtue had that whole thing where she renounced everything? She's like one of the pioneers that like started the whole conversations with the angels. She did the angel cards. My favorite deck, oh, it's upstairs, that I have of angel cards, like the Oracle, what is it called? The Archangel Oracle deck. Like, you know, it's like historical to me. It was amazing. Like, that's how I started getting to know the angels. But she renounced everything. After a while, she had this whole like thing that happened, and it was always like really weird to me. But, you know, there's other forces involved there on why she did that. But a part of me thinks that the reason why is because people were having crazy experiences because people don't always follow instructions. Like, I can tell you guys this all day long, but if you go get like some drinks and you go to a party and you're like, hey, let's call on my fucking guides, this seems like a good idea, and then like, let's channel shit, that's not gonna work out. Okay, you're going to get taken advantage of. You're going to get used, and you're probably going to do some stupid shit that you're going to regret, and you're not getting in alignment. So, like, you know, I think at some point, those of us that teach certain things, you know, it feels like, okay, am I doing more good or bad, right, by explaining these things? And that's why I'm always so fucking anal about, like, let's do it. Let's do this right. Like, there's light protocols because it doesn't serve for people to have bad experiences, right? So, yeah. Yeah, Cosmo's Christine, my fave deck too. And yeah, that story's interesting. So I really think that happened. I think that she was getting so big and so powerful and so influential that I also feel like some forces, you know, got to her in that sense. But yeah, so, you know, which shit happens. We know what happens. You know, some people even disappear in the world. So for some people, it's easier to renounce and say, never mind, let me just live my life. Don't threaten my family, you know? So things happen. But a part of me probably thinks that she was kind of getting so huge that a lot of people don't understand this stuff, right? And so we can only be responsible for the things that we teach. People have to be responsible for the things that they implement, but we get to teach them to the best of our ability too. So Wilson, yes, astro travel safely. You're so good at guiding us. Thank you. Yeah, I am picky. And if you guys have noticed, every time, because I am responsible. Because do you guys know why that is because I have been tricked. I have, like, when I was astral traveling before 2012, when the rules were different, and I say this often, before 2012, you had to eject yourself out of the body completely. So you wouldn't be conscious here at all. You would just be somewhere else, okay? If you really wanted to do, like, the stuff that we do now in astral projection was not available because fifth dimensional frequencies, like, the earth had not emerged into the galaxy. So that frequency was not available. So we had to disconnect from the body and eject and go. Okay, now because the higher frequencies are available, we can leave a part of our consciousness in the body and project enough to be conscious in both places, which is why bilocation and further trilocation is possible. And we've done that in a lot of things. So, but back in the days when that stuff would happen, and I was just doing this stuff, I did this by myself for like 10 years before I ever, even offered to help people with it or figured that I could track energy. So anyways, while I was doing this stuff by myself, and I was actually figuring out some things for my ex-husband for his company. We figured out this way by me talking to my higher self and his higher self in the astral planes that one of his engineers was actually leaking his patented information to somebody else. I was like, so this is like what my higher self said. I feel like you should check with that. Do you have a contract for that? Do you have this? And he was like, no. And it turned out to be like, it was just wild, right? But a lot of things that check. So I actually have checked my skills in a lot of like very like physical, earthly, double checking kind of things to make sure that I was accurate. So anyways, but sometimes I would get tricked because not sometimes, it happened once. And I was like, motherfuckers, you're never happened. This is not happening again. Because I was starting to get comfortable. And I was like, oh, I know where I'm going. The council's over here. God's over here. Creation points over here. Sea of golden light. Like I had mapped it out because I was going enough different places. And I was starting to really get my bearings on like the cities and the heavens and like all the shit that was going on where the star systems were. And so I felt cocky, maybe, right? Like I got to the point where I was like, I know where I'm going. And I didn't. Like one time there was a question that came at me fast and I was like, oh, let me just go and see. And I got tricked and it wasn't the right answer. And it was an entity pretending to be one of my guides. And finally, like once he said something and I was like, wait a minute, like during the conversation, I realized it. And so then I did a clearing. And then he had to, move because they have to. Once you know the higher laws, you can call them out and they have to like behave accordingly, right? So we have the power. We can do those things. So yeah, after that, never do I skip parts, right? Like I just don't. That's why we're like every time we ground, we connect, we activate all the circuitry inside, right? We fly safe. That's why I always say, because I've had that experience and you feel like, you feel cheated, you feel, robbed, you feel violated in a sense that you're actually like communicating with someone on something that's like so, deep and raw and vulnerable because when we're like in that state. So anyways, I just don't recommend it. And I had my lesson and obviously it was a very good learning lesson for myself. And then I learned, to make sure that I taught it right and I always did it, according to that from now on. Or from then on. And so even now when we go on astral travels, I will always feel it, right? Because energetically, that's my gift is I'm a tracker. So I can track and I feel it. And so sometimes if anybody's having any kind of a thing, like we stop and we clear because we get to be safe. So, yep. Who is the guides? I have many guides. Yeah. So, whew. I work with a lot. I work with the Syrian Council predominantly, but I work with a lot of different guys. Yes, she saves life. I love you guys. Oh, sister, you asked me if this is going to be closed caption somewhere, and I am still working on that. I haven't figured out the apps on how to do that for it to work. But when I upload the videos to YouTube, YouTube, if you don't actually click on the video, will automatically subtitle everything. So that does work on YouTube. But you can't actually like click on the video. It's a weird thing that it does. So, okay. So my teachers, since you're asking, I have studied very deeply with the Pleiadians and with the Sirians and with the Arcturians. Well, not very deeply, but for a short periods of time throughout my history with Arcturians. They were actually my first guides. Then with the Pleiadians, then with the Sirians, then with the Andromedans, then with the Lyrans. And it generally is a thing that happens in a series. And you have to put a lot of like time and effort into it. And so I'm willing to do that. But I'm willing to do things that a lot of people aren't willing to do, right? And like, not necessarily that, but you know, like you have to be willing to sit there and actually like learn from beings that initially you can't quite grasp, right? But you know they're there, and like you know that you're meant to learn, but it's a little tricky. And so having coordinates on how to do it and having an understanding of how to do it. So I developed a way, right? I developed a way after doing it and after literally like waking up and going to school with my guides for a solid year. It was a little over a year, writing things down, taking notes, journaling, taking voice memos, like all sorts of things. I learned so much, and so many things that were actually crisscrossed with like real life events that now I feel like it's normal. But I remember when I started, I was like, oh my God, I just connected to this planet. Oh my God, I just talked to this person. Oh my God, they just took me on a ship here, right? Like sometimes I share those, like the titles of the voice memos, and it's just like, it was a pretty wild experience. Now it became more normal. So I'm not like, as like, oh my God, that happened, but it's pretty wild. And those are the things I teach in the Metaphysical Mastermind. So like the integration of the connection with the guides. So what happens a lot of times is you work with your higher self until you're actually ready to integrate that energy. Good question, Dragon Rose. Are the Sirians golden and the Pleiadians blue? No. The Pleiadians are a like white fluorescent sort of hue. They're the ones that look closest to us. So here's the thing. A lot of people misrepresent it's an internet phenomenon. A lot of people misrepresent what the star beings look like, because this is what happens is somebody posts some kind of meme on the internet with a being that looks like an alien, right? And they call it something, and they call it Syrian ceremony of, you know, whatever the fuck. And people are like, oh, that must be what a Syrian looks like, okay? No, like the majority of the information that's out there doesn't work. Once you actually turn on your third eye and you start operating with your senses, you will see. The Sirians have blue skin. A lot of people don't see that. A lot of people think that that's a Pleiadian because for some reason that's a predominant thing on the internet. It's not, okay? Everybody that has eyesight and has their third eye open will tell you that's the Sirians, okay? The Sirians are the ones that are bald for the majority of the majority are bald, okay? And they wear these like royal, they're very royal, and they wear like, you know, these things like the counts. What are they called? Like the whatever. Mantle things with like the big collars, and you know, they'll have a crown like this. This is like Syrian kind of vibey, right? Like Pleiadians are more like, the Pleiadian look is more like, do you remember like that vampire movie? What was it called? I never remember. But the one with the wolves and the vampires and the girl that then becomes the vampire, whatever it was called, the one with the moons. But they kind of look like that. They kind of look like the guy that was a vampire in that show. Kind of like that translucent, like white translucent skin. Okay. So Twilight, thank you. I knew somebody would say it. Thank you. So Twilight, okay, that is the look of the Pleiadians. Oh my gosh, I am tired. I'm gonna have a sip of this juice because seriously, how does it serve to be connected to these beings? Very good question, Joelle. So, whew, that is rough, you guys. Straight celery juice. Okay. But we love it. It's so good. So how does it serve? It serves if it makes sense to you. For some people, it doesn't really do anything. It's not their calling. But for those of us that have always felt like we didn't belong, for those of us, like I can look at the stars and look at the moon any day and freaking cry, right? Like the majority of the times, I don't feel like I belong on this planet. And now it makes sense that I don't belong on this. Like now I've made sense out of it. But for the longest time, I felt like I didn't belong on this planet. Nobody understood me, right? You feel like you're like, none of your friends really actually get you. Maybe you get like one person that kind of gets you. Your parents, your family, you don't belong in it. Like you just kind of live life in a different way. You try and conform. It fucking sucks, right? Like that, if that's the kind of life feeling, right? You try and blend in and then you're like, what the fuck? This is dumb, right? Like I don't belong with these people. Like this is ridiculous. This is not my people. Or you constantly get let down. Like, and there's just like, there's a feeling inside like, what the fuck am I doing here? Also, a lot of starseeds often have like suicidal moments in the past, right? I had that when I was super young, and I actually tracked it down when I was 13 years old, and I was like, I am done. My mom was like, what is going on with you? But I also felt a call very young. Like you guys have to think that I moved by myself across the ocean when I was 15, almost 16 years old, because I knew that I had a destiny to like chase on the other side of the world, and nobody understood why. But thank God my parents were like, yeah, we feel like you probably should go. So anyways, so everything started like I was really young, having like crazy experiences where nobody would understand me. And so, and then of course, like every starseed, I shut all that off, right? Because then you're like, fuck, I have to like make life work. And you know, there's banks and you have to be responsible, keep the lights on, like make food and like go to school, fucking get a job. Like, you know, there's all these things that you have to make sense of. But in reality, it really doesn't. You know that that's all fake. It feels all fucking fake. Like all the things that we do, besides when you're like in nature, or when you're like doing something where you feel so connected and like the trees talk to you and the sunlight talks to you, right? Or like you're in the garden or whatever. Like there's moments where you feel like life makes sense, but a lot of times it doesn't. So anyways, if that's the feeling and you're a starseed, then how it serves to reconnect to the star beings is that you figure out who you are. And that is the best kind of sanity that you can get fucking anywhere. There is no drug that can compete with that shit. That is like, oh my God. All of a sudden, everything makes sense. All of a sudden, the reason why you feel so much, all of a sudden, the reason why you see things, you do things, things happen, things drive you crazy, people don't understand you. All of a sudden, it all fucking makes sense, right? It's like, holy fuck, like I'm not losing my shit. Like I don't need antidepressants. I don't need ADD pills. I don't need sleep drugs. I don't have an autoimmune disease. Like you end up understanding why you're here, remembering who you are, the lives before Earth. Like we go back. This is like back before, like a lot of people do past lives on Earth, but if you're a starseed, that's not really like a big deal. You need to know about your lives before Earth, right? Like your lives in the stars, like your lives on Venus, your lives on Arcturus. Were you on Lyra? Did you fight the wars in Orion? Like that's the shit that makes sense, because we have these feelings that are bigger than life, right? And they don't make any sense. And we have these like knowingnesses or these habits or things that just don't make any sense. So anyways, that's where sanity came from. And for me, actually figuring this stuff out after starting to talk to the Pleiadians, which freaked me the fuck out the first time it ever happened, I was like, whoa, right? But I developed trust. I took my time. It's just not something, if you're doing it on your own, you can't like just do that really fast, right? Like you have to learn to build trust, especially now because there's a lot of entities out there that are trying to get a piece of the humans. So you have to be careful. But at first it was really weird. And then all of a sudden, after I started working with them, I started understanding light. I started receiving the activations. working with my own light energy, understanding how the sacred geometry worked inside of me, understanding how to connect to the higher plane safely, understanding how to connect with parts of myself that I had lost, right, in space-time, and reconnect to myself through, different dimensions and versions of me that are living in like other lives, because when time doesn't exist in space, you're living simultaneously, which means you can actually meet yourself in other lives on other planets. Just like we only use like 10% of our brain here, right? Like there's other parts that are being used other places. So you can actually start to connect with these like parts of yourself that we've dislocated. And so long story short, once I connected and I started working with the Pleiadians, I literally healed every fucking thing that was going on in my body. Nobody could tell me what the fuck was happening. I was diagnosed with all the things. I was just about to go in for a stupid surgery. Thank God I didn't do it. For endometriosis. They were going to scrape my whole insides because they couldn't understand why my insides were just growing and it was hurting and it was painful. And this was like after I had mono. So my body shut down with mono for like 9 months. I was in bed, like my body was like, you're done, and I'm taking these medicine and medication and like blah, blah, blah. Anyways, and then of course I'm diagnosed ADHD. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia when I was 20. I had like a heart condition, like all the motherfucking things. Okay, you guys, when I tell you, like, I understand. After I started doing this work, I don't take one thing. I was always like the most medicated person. Like I needed a pill to wake up. I needed a pill to go to bed, right? Like, you'd start taking like the Adderall and then the things at night and then the whatever, all of the I can't even fucking remember, but everything. I had everything. If there was a bug flying around, if there was a cold, I'd catch it, right? All the time. I was sick all the time. And my body was just like, just not good. Not feeling good on the inside, not healthy, not feeling safe inside my body. After I started doing this work and I started integrating myself and I started integrating frequencies, I healed everything. I don't take one fucking thing. I don't even drink coffee anymore. What? That's like crazy for an Italian. But anyways, that's because my body was like, and you're done. You don't need caffeine, which is really strange. Every once in a while I'll have one, but it's more like for the joy of it, not because I need it, right? So anyways, to me, that was the most liberating. And I think it's on one of my really old highlights here on Instagram, like 3 or 4 years ago. I actually took all of my meds and I piled them and I was like, I am fucking done. And I threw them away. It was a huge garbage bag, a black garbage bag of like all of these medicines. And I was like, my body is good. Like I actually reconnected with who I am. My body is not sick anymore. I was sick because I was trying to make sense out of life in a like dimensional energy that didn't work. Like I was trying to be in like different places and, I was talking to like, for example, my grandma on the other side, I was talking to the council. I was already, at this point, I was already accessing the Akashic records, okay? So I'm working with angels. I'm working with the Akashic records. I am a Reiki master at this point, and my body is still like, not working. You're still going to get, like, you know what I mean? Like surgeries and things and like, for major health stuff. And I was like, this is not like something has to give, right? Something had to change. And that only changed once, and I had done all sorts of self-development. I had gone through at this point all of the training with my mentor, Gary, that does all sorts of self-development. So I had done all that, okay? Learned a lot of different like disciplines, healing disciplines. And then I started doing the astral work and I started taking it seriously and I started reconciling with parts of myself. I started rewriting my fucking genes, okay? I don't get sick anymore. I don't ever catch the motherfucking flu. That is like insane. My mom's like, what did you do? And I was like, I rewrote my genetic code, right? So it's wild, but we can actually do this stuff. And you can do it by yourself, but you have to put in the work, right? You have to understand. So for me, it took a really long fucking time because I didn't have anybody to teach me how to do these things because everybody was like, whatever, you're losing your shit, right? So I had to go through that time where I was like losing my shit, basically. like as far as anybody else was concerned, you know, and I was just playing the person that like didn't feel good and I needed extra time because I was still riding on the energy that I was always the person that was sick. So I was like, leave me alone. Like, I just need extra time. Like, you know, and I would be like meditating, like calling on my guy, like doing the Kundalini, doing all the things that I needed to do. But that's how, and I put in my time, you know, like I put in a lot of effort and then I figured it out. And then like, holy fuck, I completely transformed my life. That's through the connection with your higher self. That's what happens when your soul begins to inhabit the body. When you actually understand how to go and connect with these galactic parts of yourself and the soul family that wants to teach you things and remind you who you are and like break open the things that you hold inside and like actually integrate, right? And learn and grow and evolve as a human. Like, it's pretty wild, but I am fucking living proof, you guys. Like, I literally did that. And I healed everything, you know? Like, I mean, it's just like, it's crazy. And now I'm the person that never gets sick. When, you know, when I was little, I was always the person that was always sick if there was anything, you know, going on. So, yeah, pretty amazing. That's the benefit. And that's how, so first of all, let's put it this way. First of all, it's a very personal mental health, I would say, is number one. Like, mental health is why, which a lot of people would think like, sure, talking to the fucking star beings and the aliens is good for mental health. And you're like, actually, it is. But, you know, you got to try it. And so, I would say first mental health and then physical. Well, first mental health, then emotional health, then physical, right? Like it kind of just, because it goes like that. It's like your mind and then your feelings and then your body, right? Because if your mind and your feelings are supporting you, bringing in the light and bringing in the information and bringing in the higher knowledge, then your body automatically heals. Like just because you're vibrating higher out of reconnecting with the truth of who you are and remembering your lives. Man, when I remember like, you know, I started connecting with my life on Sirius, I was like, holy fuck, now everything makes sense, right? And so it was like all these ding, ding, dings going on in my body, and my body was just like, ah, right? But you can't do that unless it's actually true for you, right? So it doesn't mean that like Sirius is the place for you. Like everybody has their own lineage where you can track it and you can, you know, figure that out. So, yeah, but for people, for starseeds, and that's why I started doing these readings, because I figured out that I could actually track people's energy, right? And I could tell where you come from. And so, and then I teach you how to do it, right? In courses like the Mastermind, obviously. But the healing that comes from people knowing and understanding and making sense, because this is the stuff that's in our blood, right? This is the shit that's in our blood that's driving us crazy. And these are the things, you guys know epigenetics means overriding genetics, right? A lot of people are talking about that. It's like almost becoming like a buzzy thing now, that we have the ability to rewrite our genetic code, just like we can change that, just like I altered the fact that I don't get sick anymore, right? Like I used to always get sick, and I had these, and the family genes, like this runs in my family. Well, I fucking changed that. That doesn't run in this family anymore, right? Like it's done. Like this changed, this disease changed, this is done. I healed this gene, I healed this behavior. For a lot of people, these are like patterns of abuse, right? Or like just there's a lot of things that like, you know, or serious diseases that we get to conquer and like chop the chains for. I feel like a lot of starseeds either have like massive health challenges or massive abuse, like abusive kind of like family and distort. Like we had to be born in some kind of distortion in order for us to actually access, you know, our genetic, like to be like, what the fuck? Like this has to change. And then you're like, and the bomb explodes and you know you have to change something. Because when things are okay, there's not a whole lot of desire, right? When you're like, just, yeah, it's fine. Like, it's kind of here. But when you're like, I have had enough of this shit, right? Like, you have to do something. You have to change something. So oftentimes, that's how we learn, because this is blessing of, separation and duality, like in, opposites. So yeah, that is a long answer, but that's an honest answer of like, how does this work actually heal you? And once you heal yourself, and why is there a benefit in it, right? Then you actually like start to change like your relationship to your kids, your relationship to your people around you, your relationship to the world. Once you take your power back, so that's just the beginning, right? And then you take your power back, and then you start to really be the creator of your own reality. And now you're talking, right? Now you're like completely changing the conditions of your life. Now you actually start to play with the fabric of reality in a way that's very tangible. And you start to actually like hold like higher frequencies of reality together, and you watch that shit manifest. Like, if you would have told me 2 years ago, when I was still like, maybe 3 years ago, when I was still like going through this like healing phase and understanding the star beings and everything else, that I would have my own fucking retreat room at my house. Like, you guys look, like, this is my huge retreat room that I manifested with a pyramid roof. Like, what? Look at all that magic that happens over here all the time with all of the space stuff over here. Like, it's amazing, right? And over here we have like a beautiful view of the valley and the mountains. Like, this is a part of my house. How fucking crazy is that? I manifested the shit out of it, right? To be able to do it. But like, would it have been possible if I had not been healthy and like functional and filled with light and actually owning my power? No. So you have to do the work in a way that, like, it adds up. Everything adds up. So yes. And dark nights of the soul. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So yes, April says it's what makes us go within. Yeah, it's like those deep hurts, right? Like when life is like, and now you got to look at this. So yeah. Health. Yeah. See you guys. Let me see if there were questions. When we honor our higher selves, we are whole and we are healed. Yep, that's right. Earth Mama for life, Melinda. Thank you. It's very true. And so it really is a matter of like honoring ourselves, but we haven't been taught that. That's just not, for the most part, that's just not part of like modern day society, right? Because we've been taught to like, oh, yuck, nature, we want all the fake shit. The fake shit is good. Forget all the natural shit, right? Because in the fake shit, there's a bunch of money in it. And so that's the reason why our world kind of developed that way. So yes. Okay. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. I'm glad that you guys are like feeling this. Okay. That's how I always felt, but I do not feel called to connect with these beings, although I have been hearing a lot of them for the past few days. Okay, so if you feel, like I never, I don't know where it is that I've told this story before. I never held the desire to talk to anybody. In fact, when I was visited by the Pleiadians for the first time, I was like, what in the fuck? Can you guys get out? But I hadn't heard of them. And people were not talking about these things, right? Like 4 or 5 years ago, people weren't talking about these things. Think back. It's kind of become like a buzz thing in the past couple of years, right? But like, it really wasn't. And people weren't talking honestly. I remember just even 2 years ago, I opened up for a festival, and I did an astral travel at a festival, like super new age, like the closest thing you can find to like Burning Man inside of a city, right? Like super cool, super hip, super like avant-garde in terms of like all of this stuff. So I'm like, I'm just being me. I go to this festival downtown. I do my thing. We have like sound bowls, and, I take everybody through an astral travel, and I speak all the things that are happening. And then I asked the people in charge, I was like, how was that? And they're like, oh my God, you actually said all the things that like, we don't talk about those things. Like we like don't actually put them in words, right? And I remember I was like, why would we not actually say them out loud? Why would we not talk about the guides and the angels and these things? So I remember like even a couple of years ago, it was really wild. A lot of people like to talk cryptic so that you don't really know if you have the information, right? You don't really know. Like, it's just like, oh, it's a lot of downloads and it's a lot of codes and it's a lot of angels, but nobody ever gets specific. And I started getting fucking specific because That's the nature of actually clarity and of making use of the information. Until it's vague, you don't make use of it. So anyways, my point in saying this is the fact that it shifted, and now it's become like there's a lot of people that are more talking about it, right? The astrologers have started incorporating it. It's more mainstream. I'm going to say that, the star beings and aliens conversation is more mainstream. So I feel like it's also part of the conversation of saying, I don't know that I really feel, like being called to work with them or not. Like, that's now on the table. But when it happened for me, that was not a thing I was thinking about at all. Like, I was very comfortable talking to like all the angels and the archangels. I was starting to figure out like the difference between the angels and the archangels and the seraphims. Like, there's the angelic realms. And I was good with like the angelic realms. I was good with the Akashic records, the council at the Akashic records, figuring out the whole God thing and the universe. Like, that was good. Like, I was solid in that. I was talking to grandma on the other side, talking to the people on the other side, like, seeing my friends on the other side, figuring out how all that worked. I was solid. I thought that was good. I thought that was it. I was not expecting when the Pleiadians talked to me. And thank God it happened in a very safe space. I was in a group space at an event of my mentor, Gary, and which was unrelated, but it was a very powerful moment. And when like he has you really he calls it stepping into your God self. So like the best version of you, like where you really hold your inner, power. And because I was in that space, and I was like there, I was present, and I was pulling in as much of my being as possible in power. All of a sudden I heard this voice, and it was like a choir. And I was like, what did you say? I had never heard group consciousness before. Group consciousness sounds very different than an angel or grandma, okay? Very different sound, very different feeling. It feels like a choir, and it feels like a squad. And you just feel it, right? If you're an empath and if you're like, feeling into things, like it just feels different. And I was like, who are you? And they're like, we're the Pleiadians, right? And like we started this conversation, they would just talk to me, and I was like, it's like a voice that like kind of takes over. I don't want to say takes over because I don't want to have it to sound, but it's like it's a big voice. It's a strong voice, and it's like it can be, like they were just on. And I was like, you can't just be in my head. I can't hear your voice over my voice. Like, you're not allowed. Like, this is not okay. We need to like set some boundaries, set some rules, show me who you are. I asked for some signs, and all the things. So it wasn't like I seeked it out. It was like all of a sudden it showed up, and I was like, what the fuck? And so, that's how it started. I thought I was losing my shit. Like, I mean, I think it's normal. Everybody that kind of went through the stuff on the front lines of it, I'm sure it's like, I'm losing my shit. But then you start to develop trust. And like, I kind of started, working through. That's why you can't take that shit away from me. That's the difference. Like when people actually like read books and they like kind of dance around these things and they just repeat things that other people say, they don't fucking know. They don't know. Like, and I will, it's kind of like what I feel the same way. Maybe you guys will understand this. When people say, oh, like I am Italian. I'm so Italian. And I start speaking Italian and they're like, yeah, not that Italian. And I'm like, I didn't think so. Because it's like, I come from an Italian family, different. But don't tell me you're Italian if you're like 8th generation down and maybe there's like an 1/8 of your blood. Like, you can't really claim it. You can claim that it's in your blood, but you don't tell me you're Italian. Same thing with people that are like, oh my God, yeah, I know all the star races and like the star beings. I'm like, oh, right? And then it's like, well, I don't know them on that level. That's what I thought. Like, you just don't. Like, a lot of people don't. They just like repeat things and they talk about it. But if you ask me, I know, because that was like blood, sweat, and tears for me, right? To like actually do this work and to understand it. And I put in the time. So now I know. And when people sit there and have all these conspiracies and they're like, Metatron, what do they say? Like Metatron's death cube or whatever the fuck. And I'm like, dude, you have no concept. You've probably never talked to the guy, nor do you have an understanding of how sacred geometry actually evolves, because you've never developed a relationship with your higher self or with any other star beings that actually taught you, where you could actually experience it from inside of yourself and moving out. Like, you don't know. You're just repeating things because you're in fear and you think, oh yeah, that makes sense. But you don't have like an experience of it, which is the reason why it's so big in my heart when I take you guys on astral travels and I hold the energy for everybody to see. Like, it's so important for you to have the experiences. One of the coolest fucking things that happens when we go on these astral travels is that people see things and then I say them, right? And so you're like, holy fuck, I'm not losing my shit. Like, it's one of the coolest things that happen, like when we have these experiences where you're just like, oh my God, I saw it in a split second, you said it. And like, I had no idea. Like the most recent, like, new moon meditation, we were doing a recalibration between heaven and earth. All of a sudden we go up to our higher self and things happen that I'm not expecting it. But it's not like I'm planning a fucking visualization. Like, we go together. We are live in the astral planes, right? Like, surprises happen. So I am navigating in real time and I fucking see what happens because that's what I do. I actually see. I've developed these senses, right? And I hold the energy. And so then all of a sudden I'm there and I'm like, it looks like people are having a reunion with twin flames. It's almost like people are having like these ceremonial things. So I'm watching these things happen that were not planned at all. And then after the fact, everybody was like, holy fuck, that was me. That happened to me. That happened to me, right? And people like see each other because that's what's happening in real time. And so once you develop your skills, you get to that point, right? But a lot of people are not like, they're not developing the skills for themselves. They're just shining by, somebody else's light, or like they're teaching someone else's knowledge, which is different. So you want to know those things for yourself. And the more, this is what happens in the courses that I teach, the more you have these experiences where you're like, holy fuck, I saw that, and then you said it. Oh my God, I felt that, and then you said it. Holy shit, I saw that too. I think I saw the call. Like you start to build, and then you start to trust yourself, right? And the more you trust yourself, the more your senses open, the more your third eye opens, the more you allow yourself to see more, because we have to feel safe. One of the biggest things is like developing the safety, right? To be able to see those things. And so then you develop the safety, your senses open up, you develop the nervous system to be able to sustain it. And, we do all of this work, and then it becomes normal that you actually see these things, and then you experience these things and you see each other, right? Doing all of these other stuff. So it's pretty cool. Some of the people that have been doing this for a while, with the groups, like see each other, and they like see each other's outfits and what they're wearing and what they're doing and what they're writing. Like, it's pretty cool, right? So it's just senses to be developed. But yeah. Once you know and you develop that as a know and as a personal relationship, it doesn't matter if the next viral bullshit meme on the internet says some bullshit thing about some star race, because you know better. Like, you have your own guidance system. You've had your own experiences, and nobody can take that away from you, right? Like, these are conversations, like I have these conversations with my parents or with people that are in religions all the time, that just kind of go through and check mark, religions. Like, this happens, this happens, this happens. I'm doing this. I'm good. I'm not doing this. I'm going by the rules, da, 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 da. But there's no actual heart and knowledge involved, right? And so like one conversation I said to my parents, I'm like, look, you may look good on paper, but do you fucking know what happens? Like, if you were to die tomorrow, do you know where to go? Do you know what it looks like on the other side? Or do you want me to tell you? You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that's like how you really want to talk to people. But the point is that there's a practical level of knowledge, and nobody can take that away from you once you actually understand, which is how you continue to build your personal power. And you find yourself in these circumstances that are like, oh my God, this is not okay, right? Like, I need to get out. But you now know how to do certain things. So you don't have to like, oh, I read this in a book. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to like reference other things. It's just a knowingness. It's in you. You have integrated it. You know what to do. And you shift, and you create circumstances as you need, because that's our divine birthright to be able to create our own reality on earth. And the more of us are able to do this, all of our realities like will intertwine because they'll match each other on a frequency bandwidth that is above the current like enslavery, like enslave frequency central bandwidth that's around the planet, which is the 3D, and which, is also like, it really is a frequency that infiltrates all the way up to 11. If once you start working in 12D and above, it's not infiltratable, if that's a word. But anywhere below, the shit can get fucked up if you're not paying attention. And so the more of us can actually create our own realities, it like weaves, like the fabric of reality comes together and we create, right? Like I hold my neighborhood, my city, my state, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like the more of us that weave together our energy field that's heart-centered, based on higher frequencies, on higher principles, and we connect throughout the planet, then automatically this is like done. This is the new common denominator, right? This is why we want to constantly like raise the vibe. This is what do I think about angels? I think that angels have a very special kind of like, they have a part to play, okay, in the whole grand scheme of things. Angels are like guardians of the frequency realms, if that's what you want to call it. But angels are kind of like an in-between. So a lot of times what happens is we aren't comfortable to think of ourselves in like a higher form. So the easiest thing is to work with angels, right? Because for whatever reason, it's almost like it's okay. In our society, we grew up with this concept that guardian angels must be a thing, right? And like all the angels, and there's angels in the Bible and things like that. And so we somehow in the back of our mind, it's okay. So it's somewhat safe. And so it's a safe way to develop a relationship that's like, that starts to give you that confidence to then connect with your higher self. The truth is, once you learn the power of who you are and your higher self, you don't need to call on your angels because you got yourself. But they're amazing at being intermediaries, and they're here to help us. Like they're actually here in service of humanity, right? That doesn't mean that you get to be an asshole to your angels, like at all. But they're there to help you. Like they're here to help us. Archangel Michael was actually the first guy, he was Adam, the famous Adam and Eve. That's Archangel Michael. Like, and he stuck around because, he was the first guy inside of a human body to inhabit Earth. So he's like, I'm sticking around. Like, this is I initiated this motherfucking planet with humanity, right? So like, I'm sticking around for like my family because he, felt like this responsibility. So he's really cool. He's been around a really long time. He can do a lot of fucking cool things, like that's when you put it in context about his responsibility, it makes sense. So a lot of the angels were actually people that lived on Earth, a couple of thousand years ago, maybe more, 5,000 years ago. And they stuck around after, kind of like Thoth, except Thoth was like born 3 times. And then like now he's not like an angel, but he works like in the realms, right? So, well, he's also, anyways, the angels are intermediaries. And so when we don't feel like we're capable of reconciling with our higher self or with God, the angels are like intermediaries. And angels have different, like roles. And they actually help with all sorts of different things. There's angels that guard every single one of your chakras. Like the angels get very specific. This is the kind of stuff that I teach in the Sacred Chakras journey, is like how to work with like all of your chakras, the 13 chakras, and which angel is associated with each chakra. Because our chakras are like star portals. And so a lot of information can come in and out. You start working with your angels with that stuff. Now you're in business, meaning like now you're actually understanding how your whole self can like flow, right? We work with very limited knowledge here on Earth. Like we're not taught these things. So we're not used to fully using all of our abilities. Once you start understanding that you're so much bigger than inside this body, you're like, oh, I can stretch. I am alive. I can take up space, right? Instead of hiding, like you can actually take up space. Like you feel your energy. You know, when people walk into a room, a lot of people say this to me all the time. Whenever people meet me, like randomly at the store, when people come to retreats and people come to events, like whenever people meet me in person, they're like, oh my God, I thought you were a lot taller, right? Why? Because my energy makes it seem like I am taller because I'm so connected to all my higher chakras that it feels like presence. It feels like massive. But I'm really not, like in real life, right? I'm 5'6", like I'm not that tall, but a lot of people feel like, I mean, I'm tall, but like, depends on how you look at it. But a lot of people feel that way, right? And you know how like sometimes like people walk into a room and you're just like, you don't even notice them. And sometimes people walk into a room and you're like, whoa, right? And I'm not talking about like a short dress kind of vibe. I'm talking about presence. I'm talking about if everybody was wearing the same outfit, somebody walks into a room and you just feel the lightsaber, like, zoom, you know, like energy field, and like they have presence. Well, their shit's active, right? Like their chakras are activated, their aura is on, and so we feel it. So yeah, that's how that's helpful. So yes, Bobby came to visit. Yeah, Bobby came to that event. It's exactly the event that you flew in for, Bobby, the one that I was talking about with the astral travel, where I said the things on the microphone and I was wearing that like crazy outfit. It's like super sparkly outfit. And I talked everybody through it, and the people were like, whoa, you actually said these things out loud. And I was like, yeah, I thought we were all good with the astral travels, but it was amazing. Yes. Thank you for being specific. I needed that specificity, and that's what enabled me to realize that I was part of the movement. Amazing. Yay. So good. Was God both male and female to you? Well, technically, creator of all that is both, right? Because you have to have both. So yes. However, there are different gods and goddesses. So it's really a lot more intricate. Let's just say that the tree of the gods is much more like the mythology. Like, you know, the ancient Romans and the Greeks, they kind of had like, you know, the different gods over different things. And then they had like the big god. It kind of is like that, except, you know, that's kind of distorted, but it's much more similar to that, because creator of all that is all. Is mother, father, God, right? Like creator. And then there's actually different gods that are in charge of different things, because creator is, you know, prime creator or creator of all that is, or whatever, however you want to say it, is a massive intelligence that is the all, which means it's all inclusive. But a lot of times we don't actually grasp all that, but we start to talk to like smaller gods, like, I don't know, the God of our universe, right? And so God, I'll tell you this, very personal, another like very specific story. I used to think of God as a man, like in man form, because I grew up in a Catholic country, right? God is a dude. And then there's Mary, and then there's Jesus, like it's this dislocated situation. So I grew up with this image and this concept of God as like a man that was like really bright, and that's how I would see him. And then one time when I actually got the balls, and I would go talk to him, right? Like I would go talk to him, and I was like, okay, I had this conversation. Not like okay, but I was like, you know, obviously when you talk to like, you know, higher beings, you're kind of like, you feel, you know, but God is funny. God is not like the dude in the Bible, right? So especially everybody, like those of you in the mastermind that are going to experience the new bonus that we're doing with theta healing, the one requirement of theta healing is that you believe in God, which is really interesting. But God, creator of all that is very good. And I've been really good at figuring out how to reorganize that, because a lot of people just have distorted information about God. But anyways, so I went and talked to God, and I was like, are you? Like, can you show me who you actually are? And it was the trippiest fucking thing I'd ever seen. And it flipped me, like it tripped me out. But by this point I was working with the council. I was talking to God. I would like go and have, you know, conversations. I knew that I was getting the right information because I was bringing it like into people that I wouldn't know, right? Names and things and whatever not. So I know, like, there was a thing going on. So anyways, I asked God and I'm like, will you show me your form? And so God, from like a being, just dislocated and like this, like opened up, like in space time. And it looked to me like it was this visual of like, you know, an infinite amount of mirrors, but it wasn't mirrors. It was like white light that just went, pop, 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 pop. And I was like, what the fuck just happened? And then, you know, the energy reassembled. And so, you know, to me, as he appeared as a he, because that was what my mind was willing to see, okay, what my being was willing to grasp. He said to me after he came back, he's like, I am the all. I am the beginning and the end. I have, you know, I am everything. I take the form that you are willing to receive me in, right? So a lot of times this is what happens is we have an idea, and if something looks different than what it looks to our little tiny baby human mind, we get scared. And so God will show up for you in form of a woman or in form of a man, right? You have to establish that relationship, that you are talking to source, that you are talking to creator of all that is, that you are talking to prime creator, right? So you have to establish that and you have to reorganize it. But the truth is, God will come to you, which is the reason why I like to say God instead of he or she, because it's like the whole thing, right? So, but once you start to recalibrate that for yourself, there's a lot of freedom in that. There's a lot of like expansion in that, because there's no male or female. There's allness. And we're just not used to speaking in those terms. So it's hard to communicate in human terms because we don't have adequate language for it. So hope that makes sense. Cool. Cool. Wilson just watched the video where they sent me signs. Yes, they do send me signs. Okay, do you see the crystalline realms? Yes, you can. Everybody can access the crystalline realms. So, good morning from the UK. Hi, sister. Oh my gosh, I'm catching up with all the things. So, yes, amazing. Okay, you guys are understanding. Good. Okay, cool. Everything, yes. Okay, cool. Okay. They were like golden and silver, diamond, sun. Yes, they separated. You're right. There was golden and silver, and then they separated. And there's all sorts of different. We go through different activations, and we start seeing things different, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden everything is gold. If you look through my old videos too, which is kind of funny, but you see it in my jewelry. I go through phases because all of a sudden I was working with a lot of like gold, and then it's like, no, once I was working with the Pleiadians, everything became like silver. Everything was like metallic silver. And I was working with like higher frequencies, and it went to gold again. And then like it's like crystalline frequencies, and you start resonating with like diamonds and like different colors. It's wild. So for everything that you go through, there's a different frequency, and you'll feel like working with different things, different colors, different foods, like because you're processing through different frequencies. So my loves, we talked about a lot of things, and we kind of ended up not really talking about this equinox, but I feel like this was a good conversation. This equinox is the reset of a 9-year Mayan cycle that is closing out the chapter that started in 2012. Maybe we need to go live tomorrow and talk about this. And we will talk about it a little bit more, and because it's like 1 a.m. So I'm pretty sure we've been on for like an hour. And then, yeah, it was good indeed. Good. I am so glad. But remember this in case you don't, but I'm going to try and do a surprise live. It's an end of a 9-year cycle. And the 9-year cycle started with 2012, where the first huge dimensional frequency shift happened on the planet. The Earth emerged into the galaxy. Like we re-emerged, we re-entered, right, the galaxy. That's the reason why all of a sudden star beings, that's the reason why all of a sudden we, like it got opened up and we started developing like all of these higher senses. So then at the end of 2019, we got 12D on the planet. Okay. So it took 7 years. That was the end of like the 7-year cycle. And we got 12D. Okay. So it went from 5D to 7D, to 12D. And that was complete. And then all of a sudden we had to like integrate all of this stuff all the way through until last year. So it was it was over the summer of 2020 that we got the 12 to 24. And now just recently up to 36, like last month, 36 is available on the planet. And with this equinox, we're going to ground it into the grid. Okay, which means it doesn't mean that all of our strands of DNA are active, and integrated and plugged in, but it means that we can start activating. It means that we can start uncoiling all of this stuff. We can start activating it. We can start making it functional. We can start laying the foundation so that when the materials are available for us to build the house, right? Or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like get the light body on. So we have to start doing the groundwork and it's available now. Okay. So that's happening with the equinox and we're going to be able to bring it and ground it in. But just like we did this work in 2019 and we did, remember like when all the chakras went from all the colors and all of a sudden we had the pillar of light, right? It was crystalline, diamond light, the crystalline pillar all the way. Everything went like, diamond bright, like no more separation, no more colors. So, but a lot of people still haven't gone through that, right? So those of us that are like on the front lines and at the edge of, the reality and the dimensional frequency shifts, we go through these first. And so we anchor them in the grid and then, we make it available for everybody else. But that's the work that we're doing for the equinox. And then, of course, we're going to go through this work in the Metaphysical Mastermind, which by the way, it's like, I didn't even mention this in like a whole entire hour live. That's how much I like just love talking with you guys. Tomorrow, not tomorrow. It's like a day and a half left to register, depending on when you watch this video. For those of you in the live, it's a day and a half. Because it's the 17th at 1 p.m. Eastern. Okay, is when we close registration so that we can make sure everything is in and organized and everybody has access on until the night of the 17th, because the 18th early morning we're on a plane to Cancun, which that's a story of another day. Like not to Cancun, we're going to Tulum, but we have to. We're going to Cancun, to Tulum. And that's where we are because this is a Mayan cycle. We are going down to a sacred site in Tulum to reconnect to these timelines and to actually do the work with like calling in the Mayans, which the Mayans were actually straight from the Pleiades. So these are all entanglements that happened. So I love your humor and laugh. Oh, good. I am so glad. The container meaning the course is called Metaphysical Mastermind. Yes. And Metaphysical Mastermind is starting, the bonus is on the 19th, where we're doing the Equinox astral travel. That's where we're going up, recalibrating all the way, right? Higher self integration. We're going to get in like as much as we can of all of our higher all of our higher chakras popped, activated, integrated, all of that work. So it's going to be amazing. We're going to see what comes in. We're going to be in real time. We're actually going to like navigate it together. Whole family of light is like showing up. Like this is the shit that we're working with like the founders on, right? So like it's the big guns. It's like the whole family of light showing up. So we're doing big work. And then on the 25th, so the following week, so you have like a week. Once we kick off the mastermind, you have a week. And there's a bunch of bonuses that are amazing that you can go through. And then on the 25th, we start module 1. And then it's a 10 weeks from there. Okay. And like we go through everything of how to, connect with your family of light, how to know who your guides are, how to work through all the things that I've worked through, how to heal. We've had like all sorts of miraculous like healings. People that have healed like unhealable health conditions, people that have like suffered from migraines all their lives, all of a sudden heal that. Like people manifesting, like all sorts of magical things. You will learn how to use your superpowers. That's basically like the closest thing to X-Men school. So that's one of the things that calls you. We are launching that from Tulum. It's going to be amazing. Yes. Okay. Bravo. Yay. Okay, cool. Love you. Have to prep for class. That starts in 9 hours. Amazing. Love you guys. Thanks for hanging out late with me. This is a good chat. So let me know if you have questions. But yeah, I wanted to remind you that registration closes because then we start. We're going to start this whole new thing. It's X-Men's. It's the closest thing to X-Men school. I don't know anybody else that's going to teach you how to like open portals, how to do grid work, how to use your fucking sword, how to like activate your crown of light, right? How to work with your armor of light. Like we get into it. Like I don't bullshit. I like actually explain it, how to activate all the things, right? Because like once you've done it, once you've actually gone, because I've gone through those things, right? So I can tell you from experience. So different story. Yeah. So cool. In 2012, when was the shift? It was December 12. It was like the big Mayan like reset. Yeah, with 5D. So cool. I love you guys. I will see you here soon, hopefully for a surprise live. And if not, I'll see you in stories. But I love you all. Let me know if you have questions. Send me messages. It's Sonia G for the Moon Babes late Monday Night Live. I love you all. Go to my website, www.moonbabetribe.com for all the courses and the things and the Equinox events, because you can also get those separately. So you can purchase just the events and we're doing a free one. So all the info's on there. And then here you find me at Moon Babes and the Light Tribe. Love you guys.